Linda disappeared from my birthday party right after she took a phone call. The next morning, bright and early, Linda's love interest, Charles, posted on social media, "Thank you for being there when I felt so helpless and hopeless." The picture was of Linda, asleep, her face at peace. At that moment, I finally let go of 10 years of waiting and erased her from my heart completely. Linda came back, but with Charles in tow. When she showed up at my place, Charles was with her, too. Linda gently touched Charles's cheek, her eyes filled with warmth. It was strange. I had been into Linda for 10 years. Now watching her all over another guy, right in front of me, I didn't feel a bit upset. I walked over with my usual smile. "What brings you here?" Linda handed me a box, saying, "Sorry for rushing out the other day. Didn't get a chance to give you your birthday present." I took the gift and replied with a faint smile, "Thanks." Linda continued, "Charles and I are about to grab a bite. Want to join us?" I waved it off. I don't want to be a third wheel. As I turned to leave, I caught Linda saying, "See? My relationship with Victor isn't what you thought." Charles said, holding Linda's arm, "All right, I get it now. My bad for misunderstanding." Couldn't help but chuckle. So that's why she came today. After years of liking Linda, once she was with the guy of her dreams, I was downgraded to just a friend. But what really got to me was being made to feel like I was intruding. I felt offended. Back home, I flopped onto the couch and tossed Linda's gift aside. Without them around, I felt unexpectedly relieved. Oddly light. Even though Linda and I didn't work for the same company, we were in the same building. She was on the 22nd floor. I was on the 21st. Linda was picky with food and often skipped breakfast, which led to stomach issues over time. Since our offices were so close, I used to get up an hour earlier every day, making breakfast and bringing it to her on my way to work. One morning, I showed up at work empty-handed. My colleague was surprised and teased. "No breakfast for the lady upstairs today? Did you guys have a spat?" I just smiled. "Nah, just too tired to keep it up every morning." After chatting with my coworker, I put the whole breakfast routine behind me. 3 days later, Linda came down to find me. She looked a bit off. "Why haven't you been bringing me breakfast lately?" Seeing her nonchalant expression, I couldn't help but think, I can't bring you breakfast every day, right? She was taken aback but didn't get a word in before a call came for me. After the call, I said, "Boss is checking on everyone. Gotta go." I left without acknowledging her stunned look. During a work break, I was scrolling through social media when I saw Charles had just posted a video titled, "Improvisation by My Little Troublemaker." The video showed a tabby cat tearing apart a dark blue scarf. I recognized it at once. The scarf was a gift I brought back from a trip abroad last winter for Linda. Friends commented, teasing about wasting such an expensive scarf. Charles did it on purpose, and it was clear as day to me. Then Alex, a friend of mine, texted me, "That scarf being shredded by Charles's cat, isn't that the one you got for Linda last year?" Calmly, I replied, "Yeah, that one." Surprised at my newfound calmness, I texted Alex again. "Think I'll ever stop liking Linda one day?" Alex, annoyed with my predicament, messaged back, "No way. If you really want to stop liking her, throw away every birthday gift she's given you over the last 10 years. Every gift Linda gave me over the past 10 years, I cherished and kept." Hearing Alex suggest this, I realized I hadn't even opened her belated birthday gift this year. Surprisingly, I wasn't eager to find out what it was. A few days later, as I exited the elevator after work, Linda approached me. "Care to catch a movie with me tonight?" She spoke with her usual casual tone. I responded, "Why not ask your boyfriend?" Linda shrugged, "He's not into sci-fi." I chuckled, "Me neither. Honestly, I'm not into sci-fi, but I had bought 2 tickets in advance the moment they were on pre-sale weeks ago, just for Linda. I had been into her for 10 years, always catering to her preferences. Had Linda not brought it up, I'd have forgotten to return those tickets. Linda, caught off guard by my refusal, gave me a long look. With a smile, she said, "Guess I'll ask someone else." I nodded, saying calmly, "All right, take care." As I walked past her, she called out, "What's up with you lately?" I paused, curious. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then sighed, "Never mind. Maybe it's just me. Head home. On my way home, I refunded those movie tickets. Seeing the $80 back in my account made me unexpectedly happy. Like I found money on the street, even though it was mine to start with. Being single for so long can feel lonely, especially for someone like me who's been solo since the start. Yet, I haven't regretted declining Linda's movie invite. Charles had recently posted a video on social media, reminding me of my place. Even without it, I had no intention of coming between him and Linda. While I pondered what to do with my free time, Alex called. "Hey man, need a favor." Tasked with an urgent request from Alex, I rushed to the airport. Just as I was about to dial the number Alex gave me, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I gazed upwards at the girl before me. She wore casual clothes, headphones around her neck, a guitar slung over her back. Her smile was pure and genuinely beautiful, leaving me momentarily dazed. For 10 years, the only woman I've truly cared about was Linda. I was never interested in the beautiful women others talked about. But unexpectedly, this girl in front of me caught my eye. Her name is Fiona. She's a recent university graduate and Alex's cousin. I snapped back to reality and smiled at her. Alex got the dates wrong. He's out of town and won't be back until tomorrow. Fiona chuckled. Well, I guess I'll have to ask Victor to put me up for the night. I was a bit taken aback. Alex just asked me to pick her up, not to host her. When I didn't respond, Fiona continued, with my brother away and hotel costs being high, I'm just a poor graduate. She pulled a sad face, looking pitifully at me. It left me a bit dazed. But I don't have a spare room at my place. Fiona grinned widely. I can crash on the couch or make a bed on the floor. On the way home, I couldn't help but suggest, let me book you a hotel. It'll be more comfortable. Fiona smiled and said, No way, Victor. Don't spend on me. Would you let a girl stay out alone? What if something happens? How would you explain it to my brother? She had a point. Once Fiona came to my place, she acted like she belonged there. She volunteered to help make dinner, so I relaxed on the couch and played some games. When she called me for dinner and saw the game I was playing, her eyes lit up. Victor plays this too. Let's play some rounds after we eat. Before I could reply, Linda's call came in. My eyes paused for a moment before answering. Linda's voice came through, just finished a movie. Got some crawfish. Wanna share? I replied nonchalantly, can't. My throat's a bit off lately. Can't do crawfish. Linda persisted. How about I bring over some wonton soup then? I was about to decline when Fiona, setting the table, yelled out, Victor, hurry up and try my spicy beef noodles before they get mushy. On the phone, Linda paused for a moment, then asked with an unclear tone, Is there a woman over there? I instinctively glanced at Fiona. She met my gaze and smiled brightly. Looking at the 2 bowls of noodles on the table, I felt a pang of hunger. I need to eat now, I said, ending the call without addressing Linda's question. While eating, Fiona remarked, I remember you loved spicy food when you visited our hometown with my brother 5 years ago. Has your taste changed? Alex and I were college buddies. 5 years ago, I visited for Alex's 20th birthday, and that's when I met Fiona. She hung out with us every day for that week. We used to be close back then. Though 5 years apart have distanced us, Fiona's comment felt like she was bringing our connection back. After a taste, I praised, Your cooking is good enough to start a noodle shop. Fiona shyly smiled. Glad you like it. I also made some herbal tea. I'll get us some after the noodles. I watched her busying in the kitchen, feeling a flicker of youthful warmth. What had kept me bonded to just Linda for 10 whole years? The next morning, shortly after reaching the office, Linda showed up with breakfast. Handing it to me, she smiled, freshly bought congee with preserved egg and lean meat. You should eat it while it's hot. I was taken aback and didn't reach for it. Linda pushed the breakfast into my hands. I remembered how you always brought me breakfast, and I never did for you. I thought that was unfair. I already ate, I said, trying to give it back. Linda waved it off. That's your choice to have eaten, and my choice to bring it. Do what you will. I've got to get back to work. As she walked away, she halted, turned, grinned, and casually asked, Who was that girl at your place last night? Just a cousin from back home, I told her. Her smile deepened. Oh, so a relative? She misunderstood, but I didn't bother correcting her. Back in the office, a coworker teased. Looks like you'll soon win over the lady upstairs. I just laughed, offering the kanji to him. Already had breakfast. Want it? I truly did eat earlier. Fiona made millet porridge and an egg pancake. My colleague gladly took it. I was about to order takeout. This works perfectly. I didn't usually go home for lunch from the office, but I got a call from Fiona near noon. Victor, I left without the key to your house. I sent Fiona the office address, asking her to call once she arrived. Instead, she just came up to the office. It was the lunchtime rush, full of colleagues, and Fiona's arrival turned heads. Victor. Fiona's fair skin and beautiful face, combined with her pleasant voice, created quite a stir. She had biked over with a cool and fresh breeze about her. I couldn't help but feel a rush, like she was contagious. Even if it was just my imagination, I suddenly felt like I wanted to start dating. Ignoring the knowing looks from coworkers, I hurried Fiona out. I handed her a spare key and, learning she hadn't eaten, took her to a nearby restaurant. During lunch, she said, I contacted my brother, and he's tied up with something. Can I stay at yours for a bit longer? I agreed. She'd already stayed a night, and I didn't mind. Her cooking was great, and she gamed with me. She was a nice break in my usual routine. While we were eating, Linda and a few colleagues came down from a private room upstairs and happened to see me and Fiona. Her smile faded a bit. After saying a few words to her colleagues, she walked over to me alone. Who's this? Linda gave Fiona a quick glance, her tone carrying a hint of coldness, with a deep and unreadable look in her eyes. To my surprise, Fiona, who was always gentle around me, sneered and ignored Linda. I looked at Linda and said calmly with a smile, This is my sister, staying at my place temporarily. Linda, upon hearing this, smiled knowingly, but unexpected to her. Fiona put down her chopsticks, smirked slightly, raised an eyebrow, stood up and said, Let me introduce myself. I'm Fiona, Victor's cousin through his brother Alex. Linda's smile froze for a moment. She quickly reached out, shook hands with Fiona, and said, Nice to meet you. I'm Linda. Linda then turned to look at me, her indifferent eyes showing a subtle hint of anger, as if blaming me for not explaining Fiona's background earlier. After a moment, Linda said with a faint smile, Enjoy your meal. I'll be going now. Before I could respond, Fiona waved and said with a smile, Goodbye. Victor and I won't see you off. Linda's face darkened a bit. As she brushed past me, she smirked and snorted, her expression full of sarcasm. Later that evening, while I was at home eating the dinner Fiona made, Linda unexpectedly called. As soon as I answered, her hostile voice came through. Victor, aren't you ashamed, living with a girl? I was both amused and annoyed. I'm just letting my brother's sister stay for a few days. How does that concern you? Fiona sat across from me. She slowly put down her chopsticks when she heard what I said. Linda's voice grew more serious. Victor, I'm saying this for your own good. I couldn't help but look up at Fiona, then answered Linda with a chuckle. Seems like you've got it wrong. I'm 4 years older than her. If there's any funny business, shouldn't it be from me? Across from me, Fiona's previously cool eyes brightened, and she stared intently at me, her eyes full of amusement. Linda, caught off guard by what I said, paused for a moment before gritting her teeth and asking, Do you even realize what you're saying? I casually raised an eyebrow. Linda, there are things I should have cleared up with you a long time ago. I didn't think it was necessary before, but now I do. I paused briefly, then continued. Since you have a boyfriend now, let's keep our distance. I don't want Charles misunderstanding our relationship. And about my own business, stay out of it. I'm an adult. I think through my decisions. Linda was silent for a while, then said in a soft, resigned voice, Charles won't misunderstand. I chuckled, maybe. After hanging up, Fiona asked, Did I cause any trouble for you, Victor? I shook my head and smiled. She's just meddling. A flash of something crossed Fiona's eyes, as if she had something on her mind, but soon she was smiling again like always, as if nothing happened. I thought after the call with Linda, she wouldn't interfere with my affairs again, and I'd have some peace. But I never expected that later that night, Charles posted something in our college alumni group. He angrily called me out by name, saying, "Never seen a guy this cheap. Says he won't be our third wheel, but secretly tries to steal my girlfriend. Hypocrite." A bunch of alumni asked who he was talking about, and he bluntly replied, "Victor." I was woken up in the middle of the night by a call from Alex. From his angry tone, I pieced together the whole story. I never intended to interfere in Linda and Charles's relationship, and since the day they got together, I'd already given up my 10-year wait and stopped pursuing Linda. Charles publicly insulted me in the alumni group, and naturally I wasn't going to take it lying down. I was really mad. Fiona knocked on my door, looking concerned. "My brother just called me. Are you okay?" I laughed despite being angry. "I'm fine, but can you do me a favor?" I brought out a box from the bedroom. It contained the birthday gifts Linda had given me every year for the past decade. I asked Fiona to hold the phone and record a video. Facing the camera, I smiled calmly and said, "I admit, I liked Linda for 10 years, and this box holds the birthday gifts she gave me over that time." As I spoke, I opened the box and continued. "I once asked my best friend Alex if he'd believe me if I said I no longer liked Linda. He said no unless I threw away all the birthday gifts Linda ever gave me." Fiona, with a furrowed brow and an unreadable expression, helped me film. But looking at the gifts in the box, my gaze was indifferent. Not disposing of the gifts before was my oversight, but I clearly understood that these treasures of the past were now no different from everyday trash. The box contained perfume, a watch, and a recent gift from Linda, which I hadn't even unwrapped. Facing the camera, I smiled lightly. "All right, time to throw all this away." Fiona followed me, from the house down the stairs to the dumpster outside. Facing the camera, my smile grew wider. "Linda, I don't love you anymore. From the day you vanished from my birthday party, I let go completely. Charles, I wish you and Linda everlasting happiness together." With that, I tossed all of Linda's gifts into the dumpster without hesitation. A loud crash accompanied the end of my decade-long love for Linda, leaving me feeling remarkably relieved. After I finished the video, I opened up my college alumni group chat. That group had Linda, Charles, Alex, and many other mutual friends. I posted the video in the group and added a sentence. "Linda, Charles, I hope you won't bother my life again." When I woke up in the morning, I saw 7 or 8 missed calls on my phone, all from Linda. Linda also sent me a text. "Did you fall asleep? Call me when you wake up." Her tone was always so arrogant. But since things had gotten to this point, I realized Linda and I couldn't even be friends anymore. So, I went ahead and blocked her on everything. Instantly, I felt like my world got a whole lot quieter. I left home with Fiona. I asked her where she was going, and she mysteriously smiled and said, "It's a secret. I'll tell you once it's done." When I got to work, just as I was about to get in the elevator, Linda suddenly grabbed me from behind. Her eyes were all bloodshot, and she was in a bad mood. She said, "We need to talk." I frowned, glanced at the time on my phone, and then looked at her. "There are 10 minutes till work starts. Whatever you have to say, we can talk while walking." Just then, the elevator doors opened. I was about to step in when Linda pulled me back again. "Let's talk at the cafe across the street." As I watched the elevator doors close, I shook off Linda's hand forcefully. "You're the director of your company's planning department. High up. Sometimes being late isn't a big deal. But I'm just a regular employee at my company. If I'm late, they dock my attendance award, and my boss will yell at me," I said, annoyed. Linda compressed her lips tightly. Her gaze darkened a bit, and she said, "I'll cover whatever they dock from your bonus. Both our companies work together anyway. I'll talk to your boss." I couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Is this your first day at work? If you speak to my boss on my behalf, are you trying to make sure I won't move up in the company?" Linda's eyebrows furrowed. "You didn't even like your job in the first place. When you applied, wasn't it because I was on the 22nd floor? If things don't work out for you there, come to my company. I'll take you in. Her way of speaking was as prideful as ever. True, back then, I worked hard and prepared a lot just so I could be closer to Linda, and finally got into this company. The funny thing is, she knew how I felt about her but always pretended not to see it. But there's one thing Linda got wrong. I smiled at her and said, I truly like my job right now. I won't struggle there, and even if I do, I'd never come to you to take me in. Linda fell silent, looking at me with a deep gaze. After a long pause, she said, I'm going on a business trip for a while. Wait for me. I have something to tell you when I get back. Later, Fiona called to invite me for dinner. By the time I got out of work, she was already waiting downstairs for me. At dinner, Fiona said, I have to go to City B tomorrow morning. I was puzzled. Why suddenly go to City B? Fiona laughed. Actually, I came to City S to sell songs. A music producer liked a few of my compositions and wants to buy them. But after we met today, he said I had good looks and wanted to sign me. But their main office is in City B, so I have to go with him. I chuckled. That's awesome. Maybe you'll release your own album someday. Fiona pressed her lips together tightly, a complex look in her eyes, as if she had something else to say. With Linda on her trip, Fiona moved out of my place too. Life seemed to go back to how it was but felt slightly different somehow. While Fiona was in City B, she'd text me every night. About a week later, it suddenly started pouring rain. By the time I got home from work, I was soaked and ended up with a fever that night. When Fiona texted, I was burning up and didn't notice. It was her call that woke me the next morning. As soon as I answered, my voice was hoarse and sore. Fiona worriedly asked, What's up with your voice? Are you sick? I tugged at my dry, chapped lips, chuckling softly. It's nothing. Got caught in the rain yesterday, might have gotten a fever. I'll take some medicine and push through. Fiona said, All right, take care of yourself. I have to go now. I smiled, said goodbye, and hung up. The moment the call ended, a wave of loneliness washed over me. Maybe I've been single too long, feeling so vulnerable and alone when I'm sick. Suddenly, I wished there was someone to keep me company. But I'm not as lucky as Charles. Back then, when he was job hunting in a strange city and things got rough, he called Linda. That night, Linda left my birthday party, spent the entire night driving to the city to be with him. When Fiona showed up at my door that afternoon, I was genuinely shocked. She was dragging a suitcase, looking worn out, her eyes filled with worry as she glanced at me. As soon as she came in, she went to the kitchen to boil some water and made porridge. I felt like she came back pretty suddenly. Seemed like she had a reason. I couldn't help but ask, Why'd you come back all of a sudden? You said you might stay in City B for good. She smiled nonchalantly. They did want to sign me, but I refused after seeing the contract. I asked, confused, why refuse? Don't you want to release an album? Fiona replied, There was a clause in the contract saying I couldn't date for 5 years, and I'm not willing to wait that long. When she spoke, there was something bright in her clear eyes. I remember that day I went to the airport to pick her up. I thought to myself, wow, she's all grown up now. But now, facing her, I suddenly felt guilty, and my eyes started to dodge hers. After a long pause, Fiona took a deep breath and seriously looked at me, saying, Victor, I've liked you for 5 years. Will you be my boyfriend? I was stunned. After a moment, I panicked a bit, saying, You're Alex's sister. I need to talk to Alex about this. She suddenly held my hand tightly, and with a soft gaze, smiled and said, Do you think my brother doesn't know? I looked at her, puzzled, and asked, Do you have any regrets? There's such a great opportunity in City B. She smiled and shook her head. No regrets. If I missed you for any opportunity, I truly regret it. At that moment, I felt a mix of emotions stirring inside me. I looked at her and smiled, saying, All right then, let's be together. After Fiona and I got together, she would often show up at my office around the time I got off work. Pretty much everyone at work knew I was in a relationship and that it was a younger girl I was dating. One morning, right when I got to the office, my co-worker next to me teased, Does she know you're in a relationship? I asked, What's up? The co-worker continued, The lady upstairs just got back from her trip. I ran into her in the elevator this morning. She's usually cold and doesn't talk to us, but today she actually spoke to me and asked about how you've been lately at work. My co-worker mentioned that after he mentioned I was dating someone, Linda's face darkened. I just shrugged it off, not caring much. Since Linda got back, she hadn't sought me out, which I saw as a good thing. About 3 days later, I got to work and heard there was a personnel change on the 22nd floor. Linda had been on a business trip for almost 2 weeks and secured a crucial order for the company, one that significantly affected her promotion. Now, she was promoted from director of planning to vice president of the company. I always knew Linda was talented. Her rapid promotion honestly surprised me. During lunch break, Linda came to see me. She said, "Sorry, I've been busy with work these days and didn't come see you." I calmly replied, "It's understandable, and you don't need to see me." Linda smiled knowingly. "It's been so long. Aren't you done being mad? You deleted all my contacts. Can we add each other back?" I looked at her in disbelief. Her tone was so confident. I couldn't help but chuckle. "You didn't think the video I posted in the alumni group was a joke, did you?" Linda said, "I know you're mad, but even anger has an expiration date. It's been so long. Do you really want to end our friendship over that?" I couldn't believe my ears. Did she really think I was just mad and after calming down would still be chasing after her, always liking her? Just then, my phone rang. It was Fiona calling. I answered, and my gaze softened instinctively. Fiona laughed over the phone. "The big money from selling my song just came in. Let's celebrate tonight. What do you want to eat?" "My treat." I chuckled. "Okay, I'll think about it and text you later." After hanging up, I looked up and caught Linda's cold, dark stare. She asked coldly, "Are you serious about her?" I glanced at her nonchalantly. "What else?" Linda smirked sarcastically. "Wake up. She's so much younger than you. Are you basically raising a kid?" I dropped a line and walked away. That night, it was already 10 p.m. when Fiona dropped me off. After we got together, I found out Fiona's parents had secretly bought her a place in the city. She initially lied about being a poor student with nowhere to stay just so she could live close to me, turning that into an opportunity to be near me. As for Alex conveniently forgetting the time she'd arrive, that was just part of their plan. We held hands and walked to my apartment building, and when saying goodbye, she naturally leaned in and kissed me. Suddenly, a mocking voice interrupted. "What are you two doing?" Linda's gaze swept over Fiona's face, letting out a sneer before giving me a steely look. "Victor, come over here now, and I might overlook things," she said with a stern face. I was amused by her arrogance. "Linda, what makes you feel you have the right to do that with me?" She spoke in her usual haughty tone. "Before leaving, I told you to wait for me. I'm back now, so I'm here to clear things up." She paused, then continued, "I broke up with Charles. Let's be together." I was shocked she broke up with Charles. I had chased her for 10 years, always knowing Charles was the one she couldn't forget. I still remember, on the day of our college graduation, Linda planned to confess to Charles. But he was confessed to by a well-known second-generation rich kid, and they started dating. That night, I stayed with Linda as she drank until she was wasted, watching her cry over Charles, watching her pain. It was then I realized even someone who seemed so heartless to me could love someone so deeply. That's why, when I found out she was with Charles, I gave up completely. When I snapped back to reality, I saw Fiona beside me with a sly smile on her lips and a hint of coldness in her eyes. She looked at Linda, her tone unfriendly. "Are you daydreaming? Trying to steal my boyfriend in front of me, figuring I wouldn't react?" Linda scoffed. "You're just a fresh grad. Can you build a stable life with him? Or are you expecting him to support you?" Fiona tightened her grip on my hand, smiling confidently. "Have you investigated me? I admit my income isn't super high, 1 or 2 million a year. But I own a house in this city and plan to buy a nice car soon. I earn my keep and don't rely on anyone else. I believe I can support myself and Victor." I paused in surprise, asking Fiona, "Are you kidding? How do you earn that much in a year?" Fiona laughed. "I'm not joking. I've managed a studio selling songs during college, and it's been profitable. Her voice paused, glancing at Linda before adding, I declined the deal to join a girl group during my trip to City B, but I signed a top composer contract, so my earnings this year should double last year's. With each word Fiona spoke, Linda's expression darkened. When she finished speaking, she looked provocatively at Linda, smiling. So, may I ask, what do you earn yearly? Confident enough to assume you wouldn't drag Victor down? Linda frowned, discomfort clear on her face. After a moment, she laughed, You're young and not settled yet. Before Linda could finish, Fiona cut in, I've liked him for 5 years. My mind is quite settled. If it weren't for not being of legal marriage age, I'd marry Victor right now. I've always thought Fiona was really easygoing and gentle. But tonight, she showed me she's also independent, rational, and full of courage when she's in love. When I first got with her, I think it was because I was touched and also a bit lonely inside. But now, watching her go after Linda without holding anything back, I could feel my heart getting warmer. I'm pretty sure I've fallen for her. Before Linda left, she was her usual high-handed self. She glanced at me and just said, I gave you a chance, you didn't want it. After that, Linda and I still worked in the same building. Sometimes we'd see each other in the elevator, but it was like we were strangers. A few months later, on some random night, I got a call from one of Linda's friends. Victor, can you come get Linda? She's drunk and crying, calling your name. She won't leave unless you come. I was already woken up by the call, and hearing Linda's name made me frown deeper. I just said, sorry, I'm really tired. You'll have to figure it out yourself. I was about to hang up when her friend suddenly started yelling at me. How can you be so heartless? Linda's so into you. I've never seen her like this over a guy. I hung up right then. No one could really understand. I liked Linda for 10 years, and those years were not easy for me. And now they say Linda likes me, that's the biggest joke ever. The next day at work, I heard a rumor about Linda. Everyone was talking. Heard that Linda from upstairs drank herself into the hospital last night over a guy. The coworker next to me asked, was it you who made her so upset? I shrugged a bit. What do you think? My coworker laughed. I doubt it. If she liked you, it would have happened by now. Plus, you guys haven't seemed close for a while. See? Even my colleagues have our relationship figured out so clearly. Fiona bought a ring and planned a proposal. She said, even though she wasn't legally allowed to marry yet, we could get engaged. Then we'd wait till she was old enough and make it official. She said she wanted me by her side for life. I accepted her proposal, and our status changed from boyfriend and girlfriend to engaged. Fiona even bought a car, often picking me up from work. One night she was busy and couldn't pick me up, so I took the bus home alone. Downstairs, I ran into a worn-out Linda. In my mind, Linda was always so proud, but that night she looked totally different, frail and worn out. She came up and grabbed my wrist, staring intently at the ring on my finger with bloodshot eyes. You're engaged? She asked, shocked. I just said, yes. She suddenly seemed to lose it, reaching for my ring. I pushed her away, stepping back a bit. Linda, look at yourself. But she just kept staring at my ring, angrily saying, you've been with her such a short time. How could you be engaged? You've liked me for 10 years. She kept coming closer, like she was in a trance. Panicked, I raised my hand and slapped her hard, accidentally leaving a mark on her face with my ring. It was a shallow cut, but there was some blood. At least the slap brought her back to reality for a moment. Linda asked me, what do I have to do to get you to come back to me? I was angry, so my words were sharp. Linda, face reality. We can't go back. No matter what you do, I won't like you again. Once, I was lucky enough to see her proud self break down over Charles. Now I was seeing her let go of her pride because of me. She raised her head to ask me something, but before she could, Fiona suddenly pulled me aside and slapped Linda across the face. The two of them started fighting, with Fiona hitting her hard. I quickly stepped in, pulling Fiona away. Stop fighting, I'm fine. Fiona was breathing heavily, glaring at Linda, who looked like a lost dog, a paper-thin smile on her face. By then, Linda clearly understood that it was really over between us. After the new year, Linda got transferred to work at headquarters. My lease was up, and Fiona helped me pack. While moving, she found a necklace. She picked it up and glanced at the card next to it, giving a mocking laugh. What a wedding gift. More like a way to keep you remembering her. She then casually added, "This necklace seems valuable, but it doesn't really match my style." I couldn't help but smile. I know what you're thinking. I contacted a charity yesterday. Figured I'd donate the necklace. Fiona came over and hugged me tightly. Where else can I find a husband who's so stress-free? I must have done something right in a past life to meet you. I kissed her on the forehead and smiled. I thought to myself, I'm the lucky one to have met her.